Hey, welcome everybody back to our weekly HCI Local Chapters live stream show. We have an awesome guest, well known to the HCI community, but before we start that, I want to talk about our show sponsor, Robert Half. Robert Half is a talent solutions firm and a leading provider of technology professionals needed to build, deploy, and operate technology in the digital world. And they do this by placing highly skilled IT professionals either on a contract, project, or a full-time permanent basis. Basically, they help you keep your businesses going. So you can browse available candidates, you can search for jobs, and you can find additional valuable information on hiring and career insights at roberthalf.com/technology. All right, let's get into the show. Our guest today is none other than the Kirk Weisler. Kirk is currently the Chief Morale Officer for companies and organizations around the globe. He offers coaching, keynote addresses, and workshops for companies of all services and sizes. Kirk is a past leader of the National Speakers Association, hence why we're talking about that during pre-show, a master team builder, and a professional storyteller, which we'll talk about on the show today. He has been a part of 7 startups, 4 of which were widely successful, and one of the startups created over 1,000 jobs for aspiring IT professionals, which is our target audience here, so that's awesome. Kirk has also been the MC for, well, all of the HDI conferences that I've been to over the past, several years, and he's also author of several books, one being the Dog Poop Initiative that we're going to talk about today. So welcome to the show, Kirk.
Wow. Well, thanks for that great introduction. And I'm excited to be with you. Yeah. So, and you promised me that book wasn't sitting there just for this cast.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, if you go back and watch all the previous episodes, you're 37. So it's on 36 other episodes. It is definitely on there. And so the reason it's up there, Kirk, is because I remember the first time I'd say I really met you. I know you've MC'd a lot. We see you up on stage. You just see this big audience in front of you, but I remember you had this thing called, what was it called, like Books and Breakfasts or something?
I convinced the conference panel. I said, instead of doing a session, I said before the conference starts, that morning before the conference starts, that everything's going to kick off at 9 or 8 or whatever. The hour before, people are just kind of milling around with their coffee and stale Danish. Give me a table over in the corner somewhere, and let's just talk about books. Let's just talk about, everyone's reading a book, and let's just have a discussion about books. We'll call it Books and Breakfast. And we'll just hear what everyone's reading, and we'll talk about why they're reading it, what's the best book. So the idea was to have kind of a fireside chat, but we called it Books and Breakfast. And you came to that.
I did, because I'm an early morning person. I already had my breakfast. I'm like, I'm going to just sit here for an hour and do nothing. So I heard you were so engaging on stage when opening it up. I thought, I had to go see this guy about this, book, especially because the title just cracks me up. I mean, and the fact that it's like written for me, kid at heart. And so, I gotta tell you, I never, up until that point, I never bought books at a conference. I don't know, probably because they're too heavy I remember one time I got a lot of free books at a conference from all the vendors, and I had to unload them into the garbage can at the airport because my luggage was too heavy, but this one is nice, and, it's I read it cover to cover. And I first of all, I love the title. I love the picture, but when I read it, it just hit, it was just so true. So I'd like you to share with the audience, the story behind the Dog Poop
Initiative. The story behind the story. Well, let me ask you this. Have you had any of your colleagues ever come to your office? I know we've been working from home this last year, but have you ever had any of your colleagues come into your office and see that book and go, what the heck? Have you ever had that happen?
Yes.
Why do you have a book about it? And what did you tell them? What happened next? This fascinates me, because I think that what you're about to share, well, you share. What's been your...
So first of all, I chuckle and I laugh. I'm like, oh, you got to read it. I said it's an entertaining story about just how in general in life we just overlook things and take things for granted, or just expect somebody else to be in charge. And so I said, and by the way, I think you need to read this. And I've lent it out. I've told you, I've lent it to people only within my office so I get it back, because I can imagine it would.
I tell you, I could tell 100 stories about 100 help desk managers, directors, even vice presidents, even CEOs who actually leave the book on the corner of their credenza or their desk. People come in and they go, what's that? And they go, well, take it, bring it back to me later. And that has driven, because I've never done any marketing on the book, that has driven the book sales for almost 16 years now. And so there's hundreds of thousands of copies have all been kind of word of mouth sales, because guys like you that are working in IT or working in a university setting, right? That's where you work. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, so here's all these intellectual books and all these big business reads. And then there's this looks like a children's book, and people want to know what were a couple of the attributes of the book that you really loved?
So I really liked how, it just pointed out how everybody acknowledged the problem, but nobody knew what to do. They just lost their minds, didn't know what to do about it. And I'm thinking, I'm instantly relating this to work, going, I know what the point of this is, and I'm going,
okay, so
I can label it to anything.
They tell me exactly that. So when I ask them, because quite frankly, when I wrote the book, there was no ambition to be an author. I certainly didn't want to be the dog poop guy or the initiative guy. That's not where I was going. This thing really happened. The true story that I'll tell you in just a second really happened. But leaders tell me, Kirk, why I love your book. And why? Because I can read it to my team in 5 minutes or less. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets it. In other words, the poop is a metaphor for that thing that everyone complains about. Everyone points at and says this needs to be fixed. But all they do is point and complain. No one's taking the initiative to actually fix it. And so there's poopers, there's pointers, right? So the poopers and the pointers, the complainers, and the people that broke it in the first place, right? They're not solving anything. And then there's that scooper, the person who says, you know what, this needs to be fixed. And I can complain about it, whine about it, or I can take the initiative right? And as soon as you take the initiative, so they say, Kirk, I can read this book to my team in 5 minutes. We all know what the issue is. And we all go, oh my gosh, I'm a pointer and a pooper, not a leader or a scooper. And so without shame or embarrassment, all of a sudden now there's an action plan put forward and scoopership begins or initiative begins. So leaders say, Kirk, we're done in 5 minutes. Everybody gets it. And now without shame or embarrassment, we're talking about the poop and what we're going to do about it to clean it up. How are we going to scoop this thing up? So they love it. So I was really surprised. I remember one time, the very first time that I really thought, oh, maybe this is more than a cute book, was when this airplane company, Boeing, was ordering hundreds of copies. They were ordering several cases. And I was thrilled because I had no ambition. I don't know. What do I know about writing books or selling books or books about poop? And so I called Floyd Sheets, and he was their lead trainer. And I go, Mr. Sheets, I said, I'm the author of the book. I'm sending you several hundred copies. And what are you doing with these books at Boeing Aircraft? And he goes, oh, I'm so thrilled. He was so gracious. But essentially, they were just rolling out 6 Sigma Lean, which is lean is eliminate waste in practice, process, and personnel. Eliminate waste. In other words, identify the poop and scoop it up. He said, so we've got this big 3-day thing on 6 Sigma Lean. We can kick it off with your book. He said it blows everyone out of the They're they're so surprised. All of a sudden, they're this big 6 Sigma Lean, but they're kicking off with the dog. He said it's the perfect thing. Okay, so you asked me the story behind the story. So the story behind the story, the true story behind the Dog Poop Initiative. Again, this was a very unintentional thing. So my son Josh is 23 now. He was about 5 at the time. And my wife is from Great Britain, which means that there's only one sport in the world for the Britons, and that's soccer. So I am now conscripted to be the assistant coach on the local soccer team for the 4 and 5-year-olds. It's a co-ed team. No one really cares about soccer that I can tell. My main job, Tom, is to keep the kids out of the parking lot and off the field until it's our time to be on the pitch, if you will. Yes. And so that's my big job. Keep the kids off the field. Coach Coleman is the real coach for our team. He wasn't there yet. It was a Saturday game. There was 3 big full-size teams and kind of a smaller field for these little kids. I don't know how much smaller. And so I've got 4 or 5 of our Rugrats running around. I got the blue Gatorade. I'm all set. There's some kids playing on the field. We're the 3rd set of teams to use the field that Saturday morning. And some parents that are watching their kids play see me there. They realize that I'm going to be on the field next with my kids. And they point out something to me. They say, hey, are you on the field next? And I said, yeah. And they point on the field. And they point until I see a great big pile of dog poop on the soccer field. Whoa. Where the kids, right? And they go, do you see that? And I go, yeah, I do. They go, yeah, someone's dog left a big mess out there. And so you want to tell your kids to watch out for it. Oh. Now, I really hadn't processed. I was like, okay, well, thanks. Right? No. But then then they turned around because they had done their good deed. They let me know the crap was there. So, right, they checked that box. That was all the good that they could muster that day. And I'm sitting there going, well, that was weird. And then my brain began to kind of catch up with what had just happened. I'm like, wow, their game is almost over. So a couple of things that means they've been playing on this field for an hour. Somehow they've kept their kids out of the poop, which I think is amazing. Because in our family, genetically, we're magnetized. We step in poop. That's what our family tree does.
Yep.
For generations, Weislers have stepped in poop, right? We're the first ones there. So I don't know how so that's my first thought. My second thought is, how in the world can they sit there with these little kids and just leave that? I can't wrap my head around that. And then as I'm kind of trying to process that and just going, well, I'm going to go clean. As soon as their game was over, I'm going to go clean this up. Some other adults who didn't see me get the warning over here gave me the same warning from over there. So now I've got two sets of adults have warned me about a pile of poop. So then I'm sitting there going, well, there's a couple of minutes left before their game is over. Coach Coleman comes walking up. Hey, Kirk. Hey, Coach. He got the same warnings I got. And after each warning, he looked at me like, did that just happen? And and we're not even really talking. We're like, it's surreal. So then the next thing that happens, and this is where it went to the next level. Now, game's over. Kids come running off. Our kids go running on. We're gonna do some warm-up drills in the net. We're gonna clean up the poop. There's no discussion. We're gonna get the kids warmed up. We're gonna clean up the poop before the game starts. Right? There's no discussion. This is what we're gonna do. But before we get 5 steps on the field, this referee with a striped shirt and whistle calls us over. So now it's the coach, the assistant coach, from both teams. The coaches from the previous teams. There's a huddle now on the soccer field. The referee explains, hey, listen, there's a big pile of poop over in that corner there, but don't worry. This is a big field. These are little kids. Anytime the poop gets close, I'll blow the whistle. We'll just move the ball to the other side of the field, and we'll keep playing. We're now changing the rules of the game, Tom.
So I got to tell you, Kirk, when I read that in the book, I thought that was writer's freedom of the poop was on the side somewhere. Oh my goodness.
No. There was a poop. We had a poop huddle, but it wasn't about solution. Well, no, I guess it was about solution. It was about avoidance. The solution to avoid. So anyway, Coach Coleman graciously, without saying a word, because he was so gracious, I'm not. Coach Coleman quietly stepped from the huddle, and I saw him heading towards the trash can. And so I followed his example. I went to another trash can. We found a piece of cardboard and a stick, and it took about 60 seconds to clean up the poop. And it was, it was like a Great Dane had been out there, something, a small pony or something. I don't know. So as the poop went in the trash can, I kid you not, 2 parents from the departing team said this: "Hey, good job. Somebody really needed to do that." And I'm like, again, Coach Coleman is a very classy guy. I'm not. And so I said, and it couldn't have been you I was trying to. Anyway, so what happened next was we played soccer for the next hour, and we never worried about what?
Where the poop was, yeah.
Right. And then, well, you think that was all done, but the next day, I think I went home and told my wife about it, whatever. But the next day I woke up and my brain was just racing. I was so frustrated, but I thought, all these kids, because remember, there was 2 games before our game. That meant the poop warning had been passed along for 2 hours. There was all the adults of all these kids. So what did all these kids see all the adults doing? It's almost the same thing we see when we look at anything in Washington, D.C. Yep. There's a whole bunch of pointing and blaming, complaining, and pointing and blaming, complaining, and pointing and complaining and blaming. All the children saw only that. It was only the kids of Coach Coleman that saw this coach scooping up the poop, and the assistant coach. I mean, I played a small role there, right? So I just thought, that's when I typed it up and I made a little email. And this was before video and streaming and all that. So, and it was it was kind of like a blog post and an email chain. And then I sent it out to about 1,500 people on my little list at the time. And what happened next was, today when you go viral, it's multi-millions of views, right? You're Kim Kardashian. But viral for me was within the next 2 weeks, I had 15 or 20 email replies saying, "Hey, Kirk, we read your email at our staff meeting."
Wow.
We had a meaningful discussion about, we just solved an issue that we've been dealing with for 3 years. We've been complaining for 3 years. And without shame or embarrassment, we read this at a staff meeting. And then my brother worked at the Pentagon, And he said, hey, we read it at our staff meeting at the Pentagon, and Kirk, you should do a book about this. I'm like, I'm not going to do a book about poop. And he laughed and said, sure you are. And I go, no, I don't know how to do a book. And he says, Kirk, he said, think about mom. Mom raised 3 boys, and she claimed that we were always farting and talking about poop growing up, and it made her, And so he said, you got to do it despite mom. If one of her sons finally writes, if the first book written by one of her sons is a book about poop, it'll just fit. So,
oh my goodness.
So that's probably more than you wanted to know, but that's the story behind the story.
So we're down to about a minute and a half to go. So the book seems so obvious about what it's about, but have you learned anything, since you've written this book?
Okay, this is a great question, and probably a great one to close on. And so I thought the reason people didn't take initiative, and I was wrong. I thought the number one reason people did not take initiative was because it wasn't their poop. Now, I'm not going to pick up the trash. It's not my trash. I'm not going to take care of that because it's not my problem. I thought that was the number one reason. But I was on a radio show one day, and we were talking about this, kind of like you and I are talking. And the disc jockey said the phone lines were lighting up. And it was just supposed to be a quick discussion. He said, would you mind taking some calls? The theme of almost every one of those phone calls we took for the next 30 minutes was the same. And here's what it was. A lady described coming back from work with her colleagues, coming back from lunch with her colleagues. As they're walking back into the campus, going towards the building, there's 2 great big trash cans by the doors, but about 15 feet before the trash cans, off the sidewalk, is a kind of a half-crushed Big Gulp styrofoam cup. 3 or 4 of her colleagues have already passed it. There's 3 or 4 with her. As she steps off the grass and steps towards the cup with the intent to pick it up, someone stops her.
Whoa.
Again, Tom, this is a theme. They said to her, don't touch that. You don't know where it's been.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And she said, they shamed me from taking the initiative. And she said, the more I thought about it, the more I resented it, because I don't think for a minute my coworker was worried about germs, me getting germs. Why did the coworker stop her colleague from picking up the cup? If you take the initiative after I obviously didn't, you're going to make me look bad.
Yeah.
The number one reason people are not taking initiative is, well, I don't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable because they didn't do it, and I don't want to seem like I'm better than them.
Wow.
Or they're openly telling me don't do that because they don't want me to do something they weren't willing to do, that they felt integrity to do, but denied that integrity. So there's this thing, and the solution is so easy. The solution is forget all of that shame, embarrassment, and just go and do what you see needs to be done. Initiative is seeing something that needs to be done and doing it without being asked and without worrying about being shamed for doing it. I felt this was the right thing to do. This needs to be done. And the minute anyone takes the initiative, they take the lead. That's what leadership is. Leadership is seeing something needs to be done and then doing it and maybe rallying people to do it. That's initiative. That's leadership in action.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big lesson I learned. It wasn't about that it's not my job. I think that plays a factor. But the number one reason is because people shame us. We're like, well, no one else is taking it. But the minute somebody actually steps forward and takes it, and that's why I added those, that's why I took some artistic liberty at the last 2 pages of the book. When the boy remembers his father's example in the book and he takes initiative, one of his friends sees him do it. And that's it. Oh, that's what it looks like. And this is what it feels like to take initiative.
I was going to mention that. The last 2 pages were exactly that. I could just, I see that happening where I'm at, when I see people actually taking an initiative. Although sometimes I call it eating other people's lunch because they aren't doing it. But, of course, it's not dog poop. But, but yeah, it's awesome. So, Kirk, we're at the end of the show. And I got to tell the audience that you have many more books out there than just the Dog Poop Initiative. And we're going to have you back on the show because all of your books they tell a story of life and things that just things that are important in life in general, let alone business. And so we're definitely, I know our producers are on listening tonight. I saw them. So Amy and Brandon, we got to make sure we get Kirk back on. He's willing to come back on. So we'll definitely have you back on.
The books I wrote, Tom, were books about principles I needed to learn more fully. In other words, the stories that resonate with us are the ones where we had something to learn, and we're all broken and we're all trying to become better. So yeah, I'd be delighted. I love your energy. I love the bookshelf you have behind you. We could talk about any of those books or any of my books. And I love what you're doing, reaching out to this IT audience and saying, hey, there's a career path here, and there's an opportunity here to really make a difference. And it's not just about making IT things work. It's about helping people work better and live better lives while they make IT work better to serve other people's lives. So I love what you're doing. So thanks.
Exactly. And for all of you out there, like the dog poop initiative I was sharing with Kirk pre-show is like definitely for more than just IT people. I told my wife's boss about it, who's in university advancement, nothing to do with IT, and he bought it for his entire team because he wanted them to stop pointing at things that were other people. It's things that they have to handle. Other people poop on them, basically, and instead of just like pointing to the boss that the people pooped on them, he's teaching them to just pick it up and work out the problem. So it's definitely more than just IT people. So thank you, Kirk, for being on the show. We'll definitely back, and I'll stop in and see you at least in your room at pre-con in November.
That's going to be a great event.
That's for Support World Live, and we're probably gonna have Tara Gibb on the show or somebody from HDI to talk about the conference here in a few weeks. So we'll definitely be promoting that, and I'll definitely promote having people make sure people stop and see you. Of course, we'll see you on stage too. So that's awesome. All right, everybody, that concludes our show. I want to thank Kirk for taking time out of his busy schedule. And remember to check out hdilocalchapters.org to find out more about how to become a member of this awesome organization, to network and meet people, like Kirk. And also remember, if you like our show, please subscribe to our Twitch and our YouTube channels and share the link with all the people in your network so they can learn a lot about scooping the poop, right? All right, thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.